The Initiative is really good microcosm of the season as a whole. It's got a lot of good individual scenes, a fairly well laid out plot, but overall it just doesn't come together into a cohesive whole. The episode focuses on Riley, a previously minor character who was just a TA for Buffy's psychology class. Now we learn more about him, his friends, and his secret life as it's revealed he's one of the lead commandos for the Initiative, a covert government organization dedicated to cataloging demons. Despite Riley himself being incredibly milquetoast, this episode acts as a very good introduction to him, contrasting his farm boy awkwardness with the hardened soldier. He doesn't really talk like a real person, even someone in the wedding universe, but at this point it's acceptable, even a little endearing. It starts with him and his best friend, who's definitely not in love with him, Forrest, talking about girls. More specifically, Forrest is being incredibly gross and misogynistic, and Riley is trying to remain sort of neutral, all the while they're gazing at Buffy, commenting on her looks. We then cut to Spike, following up his capture from the last episode. His storyline is definitely the best part of the episode, with some decent sci-fi horror, with a stark white facility and menagerie of monsters. This design can be found again in Whedon's Cabin in the Woods, in pretty similar circumstances. It's amusing how immediately he blames his problems on Buffy, assuming she somehow got the funding for the advanced facility. His escape sequence is a little bit cheesy and highlights one of the biggest inconsistencies with him this season. It's soon revealed that Spike has a chip in his head that causes immense pain whenever he hurts a human, but there are multiple times this episode when he throws people around, grabs them aggressively, and otherwise does things that should send him writhing on the ground, but don't. It's not the biggest issue, but it feels like there were ways to have Spike escape that don't run into these problems. His scene with Harmony offers a bit of closure on their relationship, and shows his increasing obsession with Buffy. Also amusing is a pet name for Harmony diminishing to the point he calls her a pack of menthols. Speaking of Harm, she has an intense fight with Xander, showing the sheer physical prowess of those two peak specimens, or yet more slapstick, in a season that is getting more and more full of it. While Buffy has definitely had a lot of comedic moments, there's definitely a lot more physical comedy here than previous. I suppose it was just a different energy in the writer's room. Spike then shows another skill, breaking into some kind of office and finding Buffy's address on the computer. While he's hunting and pecking, it's definitely more in-depth than Angela's in it. The initial scene with Willow is played straight, and is very reminiscent of his appearance in Lover's Walk. He's intimidating, and seems like he might actually kill Willow while she's at her lowest point. Willow is still dealing with the emotional fallout of Oz leaving, but is attending classes and in general continuing to exist. Riley asks for her to help courting Buffy, and after summarizing their torrid love affair, she does offer a few notable traits of Buffy's. This is another point in the episode's favor, the construction. When Riley knocks on her door, she yells at him to come in, and the same thing happens with Spike, which also circumvents the vampire restrictions, although there's a chance the threshold wouldn't have been strong enough anyway. Spike's attack is most reminiscent of an SA scene, complete with loud music covering up the screams. Of course, the horror is immediately dissipated after the commercial break, when it's revealed that Spike has the chip, and his failure to perform is likened to erectile dysfunction. It's a weird contrast, to have the heavy drama immediately followed by completely deflating comedy, and here it just doesn't really work. The episode is almost at the end, however, so there's a confrontation between Buffy and the Initiative team, although circumstances contrive to have her hidden from Riley's view. This is caused by a flare gun, which is again set up well, continuing the trend of good payoffs this season. While all of this is happening, there is a sort of team-up between Xander and Giles, who are both lost. There's no real discussion of emotions, but it's clear from the dialogue there are a lot going unsaid between them. It's the same place they've been in for a few episodes, although developments are forthcoming soon. Riley's plot of the episode mostly revolves him thinking about Buffy, talking around her, realizing that he likes her, then bumbling all attempts to talk to her. It's adequate, though not particularly compelling, with a lot of awkward humor. Given that he's a TA in one of her classes, it's also a bit inappropriate, but that's hardly the biggest problem with her suitors. This episode offers some good information for the viewer, and furthers a few of the characters' storylines, while also setting up the building blocks for the main plot. That's definitely one of the pitfalls of Season 4. The big bad isn't even created until halfway through, and in the meantime there are only crumbs, ideas that might become something. Overall, it's a fairly decent episode, strong for the first half of Season 4, but a little bit disappointing. I hope you've enjoyed this review. As always, be well.